Hi, everyone. So, Maslaha translates from the Arabic as for the common good, and we tackle social issues affecting Muslim communities. We work across health, education, the criminal justice system, and gender, which means we see the overlap between all of those areas. We don't just see individuals as a health problem. We work at 3 different levels. So we work at a practice level, so working at the grassroots, and then we use that work to influence at a policy level, but also at what I call the public imagination level. There's a central theme that runs through all of our work. It's our old friend George Orwell. There's a bit in the book where there's a character called Sim, and Sim talks enthusiastically about getting rid of verbs, getting rid of adjectives, so that thought crime is no longer possible. And what we found in our work is that actually we need more language. We need to widen language if we are to tackle some of these social issues, and also to understand the complexity behind them. What that means in practice is this health resource, which focused on depression and anxiety. There isn't a word for depression that translates directly into Urdu, Arabic, Bengali, Sylheti, Punjabi. So how can a doctor even have, or a therapist have that conversation with their patient? You know, in fact, how can one word encapsulate the experience of, say, a Somali woman who's fled a warring country, has lost a child, has faced domestic violence, and has been put on antidepressants, but doesn't know she's been put on antidepressants. And so we created this online resource with the community. And by the community, I mean that in the widest possible sense. So it was patients, doctors, imams, therapists, a Somali musician called Mariam Mosul, whose Songs of Exile created this another layer of language which created bonds of trust and understanding. And it was that complexity which starts locally. So this was we first actually put this out in Ladbroke Grove, but then we diffused it through the system. So we've had 7 NHS trusts using this around the country, organizations that work with minority communities, mental health organizations like Mind. We've also had this being used abroad as well. And it's understanding that local expertise, that local knowledge in helping to create this. It's also understanding that the Pakistani community in Walthamstow, East London, isn't the same as the Pakistani community in Washwood Heath, Birmingham. One of our other pieces of work is around the criminal justice system. So just to give you a sense of the problem, if Muslim communities make up about 4.4% of the population in England and Wales, in terms of the prison population, Muslim men make up about 13.4%. In young offender institutes, they make up about 22, 23%, and it's a growing problem. So as well as doing a couple of reports that have shown that at every stage of the criminal justice system, there's discrimination, whether it's conscious or unconscious. The young men that we worked with felt that they weren't able to be heard or to have their story told in the public sphere. And so we took them to the National Gallery, and they picked this painting called The Experiment by Joseph Wright of Derby. And there's a bird in a vacuum there, because they thought they were that bird being experimented on. And we recreated it to make this. And this hung as part of an event in Whitechapel Gallery. Now, what was really interesting, the young men we worked with had never been inside Whitechapel Gallery, which is just local to them. They had never been to the National Gallery, which is their gallery. And there's something about distorting and changing the narratives for communities who don't always have that public voice. There's a lovely quote from Hilary Mantel, who talks about cartography, and she says, all those straight borders, they're all lies. And borders can be physical, but they also wrap around knowledge, authority, culture, and language. And the vocabulary borders around Muslim communities at the moment are very, very narrow and policed, by the great and the good. And what we're trying to do with these projects is actually refuse to accept those limiting definitions.
Thank you, Raheel. I'll shift to this side to shift things around. So I'm going to talk about our Muslim Girls Fence project, and that's continuing on in conversations of widening language and disrupting narratives. So in her book, Sister Outsider, poet and activist Audre Lorde speaks about reclaiming language that has been made to work against us and transforming silence into language and action. Being silenced or having a lack of voice is a common experience among Muslim women who both in contemporary times and historically have been spoken about as opposed to being spoken to. So in Muslim Girls Fence, we collaborated with British Fencing, and we worked to use the sport of fencing to challenge stereotypes of Muslim girls and build resilience in light of the complex discrimination experienced by this group on the basis of both faith and gender. So a snapshot of what that discrimination could be. In the UK, there's a gender dimension to Islamophobia. 58% of Islamophobic incidents in the UK concern women. On top of that, you've got disproportionate inequalities like Raheel was talking about in education, employment, and health. Muslim women are 70% less likely to be employed than their white Christian counterparts, even when their qualifications are the same. So we moved into this project, and we had the great role model of Eudaimonia Mohammed, who some of you will have seen at the Olympics. She won a bronze medal. She's the first woman who wears a hijab to represent on the USA team in any sport. Eudaimonia Mohammed has given a lot of testimony around the fact that for her, fencing was a springboard to higher heights in light of racial and religious discrimination. She also talks about how, as a Muslim woman who chooses to wear the hijab, it's uniquely accommodating for her in the sense that for the first time, as someone who'd played sport all of her life, for the first time she truly felt like part of the team because she was wearing the same kit. So with the inspiration of Eudaimonia Mohammed and other powerful role models, we embarked on a journey with a group of young girls in East London, Year 8 girls, and we did weekly fencing workshops and sessions around identity, feminism, and themes around that. And throughout that process, we focused on reinstating Muslim girls as their own storytellers, so sharing new visions of what it's actually like to be a Muslim girl in the UK today, using the unusual imagery that we could create through fencing. And we did this through an exhibition and a short film, which we'll see a very short clip of in a little bit. And they were exhibited at the South Bank Centre as part of the Women of the World Festival. The girls involved, they've spoken to national media, international media, they've spoken at events, they fenced at the South Bank Centre, and now they're acting as ambassadors as we scale the project up in London and in Birmingham as well. So you've got a group of girls taking back power and speaking on their own terms and reclaiming their narrative. And in the words of Audre Lorde, it isn't difference that immobilizes us, but silence.
Let's say if I'm like angry and like I just let all my anger out like in fencing, because fencing is like another way of fighting but not actually hurting someone.
One of the skills I have learned is lunging. It's when you go forward with the foil and you strike at your opponent.
Which is like what you do in life. You step forward to get what you want.
Showing the world, like, just because I'm Muslim and I'm a girl and I'm not white, doesn't mean I can't do fencing. I am, and here I am showing you I can.